It was our senior year of high school, and spring break had just arrived. Most of our friends had gone away on vacation, leaving just me and one of my best friends at home. We decided to make the most of it by going on a late-night drive, hoping to have a relaxing time, listen to music, and simply just enjoy each other's company. We were listening to a classic 90s playlist that played everything from pop to punk rock. We drove aimlessly through the familiar streets of our small town, the darkness of the night casting an eerie ambience over everything. The quiet residential neighborhood seemed deserted, with only the occasional streetlight piercing through the darkness. As we turned a corner, engrossed in conversation, a sudden movement caught our attention. A figure moved from the shadows, running frantically in our direction. Startled, I slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to an abrupt halt. My friend and I exchanged glances. Our hearts were pounding in our chests. I felt like if I didn't slam on the brakes, I would have absolutely run into this insane-looking man. He was so disturbing to look at. He was very disheveled and his clothes were torn and dirty. His eyes were wild and bloodshot, as if he was consumed by some other influence. Without warning, he lunged toward our car, landing forcefully on the hood. Shock gripped us, rendering us immobile. At this moment, I felt so much terror. It may not sound scary, but just picture yourself in the middle of the night and some random man throwing themselves on top of your car. Frantically, we scrambled for the door locks, our trembling hands struggling to find the right buttons. Finally, with a collective gasp of relief, we managed to secure the doors, but the man was relentless. We could clearly see his demented determination as he clawed and pounded on the car, trying to gain entry. He was like a rabid animal trying to break into the car. Panic overwhelmed us, and a primal instinct to escape surged within me. With shaking hands, I shifted the car into reverse, pressing the gas pedal with all of my might. The tires screeched as the vehicle hurtled backwards, leaving skid marks on the pavement. My friend and I watched in terror as the man, now standing in the middle of the street, screamed incoherently. His face looked like it was filled with so much rage. I literally reversed the entire length of the street. Once I finally turned the car around, we didn't look back. Our focus locked on the narrow road ahead. The night seemed to stretch on forever as we raced away. As we caught our breath, the reality of what had just happened had sank in. We had narrowly escaped a seemingly deranged individual, a chance encounter that had left us shaken to our very core. The memory of his haunting demeanor and the sound of his desperate screams would forever be etched into my mind. We did report the incident to the authorities, hoping they would find the man and prevent him from inflicting harm onto others. However, the experience left us scarred and our sense of safety shattered. Spring break would never be the same again, as the specter of that disturbing encounter loomed over us, a reminder that darkness could still exist, even in the most familiar corners of our lives. I love taking long drives. For me, it's therapeutic and relaxing. Sometimes I throw on music, sometimes I listen to podcasts, and honestly, sometimes I just sit in silence and reflect on my thoughts. Around 6 months ago, I had some stuff happen in my life and I was feeling extremely depressed. It was like life collapsed all around me, and I just felt like I wanted to get away. So I did the only thing I knew how to do when I was feeling down, and that was go for a long drive. I left my house around 10 at night and I just kept driving. I didn't care where I was going. I just wanted to drive. I figured that I had my phone, and whenever I wanted to head back to reality, I would just plug my information into the GPS. And before I knew it, I was driving seemingly in the middle of nowhere. No lights were illuminating the street, and I went quite a few miles without seeing any houses. A little after 2 in the morning, I was getting ready to make my way home, and I pulled out my phone. I, of course, didn't have any service. So I kind of figured that I would just turn around and keep driving until I found service. When I was getting ready to turn around, I noticed something strange up ahead. I decided to go check it out. As I closed in, I noticed it was a truck in the middle of the road. I slowly approached the truck in my vehicle, and when I was close, I noticed that there was a person lying on the ground next to the truck. My immediate thought was that this person was in trouble, so I sped up to the truck and tried to see if the person was okay. I parked a few feet away and ran over to the person on the ground. It was a woman in her 20s, if I had to guess. I shouted and asked if she was okay. She started to move around a little bit, and she started to mumble something under her breath. I squatted down to the woman and asked again if she was all right. And when I was only inches away, her eyes bulged open and a massive smile emerged on her face. Then, in a disturbing voice, she said, "Gotcha!" Before I had any time to react, two larger figures came out from the bed of the truck. The woman rose to her feet, laughing as the two men jumped out of the back of the truck. Fight or flight mode kicked in. I ended up pushing the woman into the other two men, and in that brief moment of confusion, I ran back to my car and peeled off in the opposite direction. I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw the three of them scrambling. It looked like they had gotten into the truck. I was flying down the road at a dangerous speed. If they did pursue me, I think I was far enough out of sight that they never caught me. After this incident, I had a new outlook on life. Sure, life gets hard for me, but I'm just so thankful that I have my life. I have no idea what would have happened if I didn't act when I did. It gave me nightmares for a while, thinking about what could have happened. If you ever see anyone who looks like they're in trouble, just be careful, because some people in this world truly are evil. It was a dark and starless night when my girlfriend and I embarked on a spontaneous nighttime drive. The road stretched ahead, and it was incredibly long and winding. As we ventured deep down the mysterious road, it seemed to become even more narrow and more dark. As we continued down the path, my girlfriend started to intently stare out of the window. Then, out of nowhere, my girlfriend suddenly called out, her voice filled with panic. She claimed to have seen a young child waving at us from the side of the road. I was perplexed, and I ended up stopping the car and scanning the area for any signs of life. But all I saw was an empty expanse of darkness. Her insistence, however, compelled me to investigate further. We stepped out of the car and began to search the surroundings. Our steps were cautious and filled with worry. What was I going to do if there was actually a young child out here? Yet, despite our efforts, there was no trace of any child, or any living presence for that matter. Doubt started to creep into my mind, wondering if my girlfriend's eyes had been playing tricks on her. After all, it was dark, and the lights of my car could have reflected off of something, causing my girlfriend to think that there was in fact a small child out on the cliffs. Just as I struggled to believe her, I thought I could hear the sound of scurrying footsteps. I turned around, and I was speechless at what I was looking at. A young girl appeared behind us. Her face was innocent and sweet, yet her worn and tattered clothes told a different story. It was as if she had emerged from the depths of the cliff. Her clothes were so dirty it wouldn't have surprised me if she lived in the mountains somewhere. With a soft voice and pleading eyes, she asked if we could give her a ride to see her mommy. My girlfriend and I exchanged a wary glance, and we were instantly gripped with worry. I don't know what it was. Maybe something about the girl's presence and her desperate need for help, but something compelled us to agree. When we walked back to the car, the weight of the mysterious encounter was hanging heavily on us. We whispered back and forth to each other as we walked back, and we agreed that we would call the police as soon as we reached the safety of the car, since we both had left our phones in the vehicle. Once we reached the car, I turned around, only to find that the girl had vanished into thin air. Panic overtook us as we searched the area once more. I was freaking out because I knew not 2 seconds ago a little girl was standing right next to me. Yet there was no trace of her. It was as if she had been swallowed by the darkness of night. Fear completely overtook me as we hurriedly dialed the emergency line, desperate for answers, and more importantly, reassurance that we weren't losing our minds. The police arrived, their search revealing no evidence of the mysterious little girl. We were left with unanswered questions, haunted by the uncertainty of what we had encountered that fateful night. Was she a lost soul, a wandering spirit seeking solace, or perhaps a shared delusion, a figment of our collective imagination? Or was it potentially the worst option of the bunch, and this was a legitimately lost girl looking for her mother? The truth eluded us, but the lingering presence of that encounter left an undeniable mark on our lives. The reality is, I have no idea what we encountered that evening, but I do know one thing. Whatever it was, I will never forget the face of that little girl from that haunting night drive.